Hello, and welcome to this video on using Tabular Editor with Databricks. My name is Johnny Winter. In this video, we're going to look at setting up some of the prerequisites for being able to use Tabular Editor with Databricks. Before we get started, you'll need access to a Databricks workspace, and you'll also need to have Tabular Editor 3 installed. First thing we're going to look at is configuring our Databricks SQL warehouse. To do this, select the Compute option in the navigation pane on the left-hand side. Now, all Databricks workspaces will come with a default SQL warehouse. You can choose to reconfigure that default warehouse or create a brand new one specific to your purposes. I'm going to select my default warehouse. Now, I'm currently using the Databricks Free Edition. In this edition, the SQL warehouse is pre-configured and you can't change that configuration. However, if you're not using the Free Edition and you've got administrator access to the workspace, you'll see the option to edit. And these are the options we can configure. So you can give your SQL warehouse a specific name, but there are three things we want to concentrate on in particular when we're setting up the configuration here. That's the type of SQL warehouse, the cluster sizes in the SQL warehouse, and the number of clusters. So there are three types of SQL warehouse to choose from: serverless, pro, and classic. Serverless is the current default for new Databricks workspaces. At first glance, the serverless option might seem more expensive. Because they are serverless and they spin up and spin down rapidly, you often end up with overall less uptime, which then offsets that extra cost. Serverless is the most flexible and feature-rich option, including features such as the Photon query engine, predictive I/O, and intelligent workload management. If your warehouse use is going to be constant and more predictable, you may opt for the Pro warehouse option. Whilst these are cheaper to run per hour, the longer spin-up times mean they tend to be left on for longer, which can then drive up the cost. Classic SQL warehouses are a more basic option, with only entry-level Databricks features. These can be okay for rudimentary exploratory work, but they only provide entry-level performance. Full documentation on SQL warehouse types is available on the Azure Databricks documentation pages and the Databricks documentation pages as well. Cluster size refers to the size of each node used in the cluster. Databricks takes a t-shirt size approach, which means you can select sizes from 2x small up to 4x large. The size you choose should be dependent on data volume, query complexity, and the level of latency you expect. Bigger volumes of data typically require larger clusters. An increase in cluster size can also reduce query latency. The scaling option is where you set minimum and maximum limits for the number of clusters being used. Whilst changing the cluster size can be considered the scale up option, changing the scaling is the scale out option, allowing you to deal with more concurrent queries. The other detail worth paying attention to regarding your SQL data warehouse configuration is the connection details. You'll need these when you connect Tabular Editor to Databricks. There's one more thing you're going to need to set up before you can start using Tabular Editor with Databricks. The first time you attempt to import tables from Databricks into Tabular Editor, you may well be greeted with this error message. That's because for Tabular Editor to connect to Databricks, you need to install an additional piece of software. You can download that software from the Databricks website. This is a Databricks approved driver and is used for connectivity between Databricks and several other major pieces of software. Once you've got that driver installed, you'll be able to navigate to the connection wizard for Databricks in Tabular Editor 3. So, now you should be ready to start building semantic models using Tabular Editor and Databricks. We've configured our Databricks SQL warehouse appropriately, and we've installed the Simba ODBC driver so that Tabular Editor can connect to Databricks. Thanks for watching.